In this demo here, we're going to configure firewall rules. We're going to restrict the permissions of the compute engine default service account. We're going to configure identity-aware proxy TCP forwarding, organization policy constraints, and VPC service controls. So let's get started. In Cloud Shell, I'm going to start with the firewall rules for our VMs. The first one will allow traffic on TCP 80 on the web servers from the internet. And the second rule will allow traffic from the front end to the back end on TCP 8080. Alright, now let's restrict the permissions of the default service account in the IAM console. I'm going to edit this principal, and I think the editor rule is too permissive, so I'm going to change this to a viewer. I also want to be able to write to cloud storage from the VMs, so I'm going to give it the role of storage object admin as well. And let's verify the access scopes, which is something that we also need to set for the VMs to be able to write to cloud storage. I'm going to scroll down to API and identity management, and we can see that the storage API only has read-only access scope. So we're going to have to stop this VM first to be able to edit this. This is a limitation of this thing. Then we're going to edit, and we'll modify the scope for storage API so that the VM has full access to the storage. Click on save, and now I can restart the VM. Done. Now we're going to set up identity-aware proxy TCP forwarding. So we're going to click on SSH and TCP resources up here. We can see our two instances, and there is a warning here. It's basically saying that the proxy doesn't have an access, firewall access to the VMs. So we need to allow this IP range in the firewall rules. So I'm going to create a rule here, give it a name. I'll select my network. I'll leave it as an ingress. And for the target tags, I'll select the web and app tags for my VMs and the source range and TCP port 22 because I want to be able to SSH via the proxy. While the rule is being created, let's go check that the backend instance indeed doesn't have an external IP address. And I'm going to SSH to it using gcloud compute SSH backend instance 1, which is the name of the instance. And there you go. You can see that I am here in the backend instance. And if I exit, I'm back to the Cloud Shell instance. Now we're going to configure the organization policy to restrict which VMs have external IPs. Here's the default policy, which will allow any VMs to have external IP. So let's customize this. I'm going to create a rule, custom. I'm going to create an allow list. So only VMs in this list, and I'm only including the front-end instance, will be able to have an external IP address. Every other VM will not be able to have an external IP address. Click on done and save. Now I have my organization policy. Let's verify that we're now able to add an IP address to the backend instance. So I'm going to navigate down to network interfaces, and I'm going to try to add an external IP address. And we can see already that there's a notice here saying that the organization policy does not allow associate external IP to the instance. And the create IP address button is grayed out as well. So that worked. Let's now create a VPC service control to add a perimeter around our cloud storage bucket. So I'll add a new perimeter, I'll give it a name. I'll select the project to protect, which is the project where the cloud storage bucket is. Then I'll select which services to restrict and protect, and I'm going to select and add the cloud storage API. I can optionally select the accessible services. I'll just leave all of them. I could create access levels, but I will go straight to the ingress policy. And in here, I'm going to create a policy to allow access from the project and from any service account in this project and to the cloud storage API and all methods allowed. I will not create an egress policy, I'll just create the perimeter. Now let's verify that I, as a user, cannot run operations against cloud storage. You can see that I got a request prohibited by organization policy error here. That's because I'm not a service account. So the policy is working. But let's now edit the perimeter and the ingress policy. So that would allow my identity to access cloud storage API methods. So same source as before, but now I'm going to select the identity and I'm going to select myself. And I will configure the two port the same as before. And now let's verify that I can access the cloud storage bucket, and I still cannot access, and the reason is this Cloud Shell instance is not in my project, so it is actually outside the perimeter. So it's not enough for the user to be able to access. I still need to be in the perimeter. So I'm going to SSH to my backend instance, and I'm going to try again from there. Create a file and try to copy it into the bucket, and this time it worked because I am inside the perimeter and the policy allows it.